Good afternoon. Welcome. Shalom, salams. I would just like to, actually to welcome you here. Thank you for stopping this way. Blessings to you. And I just want to encourage people to read my Instagram posts under the same teacher as here, Fikiri the Dark Feminina. Some I've posted to Instagram and to Facebook. But since you're here, one's ethnicity does not depend on apparel. It doesn't depend on our color, our hair type, eye color. It doesn't depend on our appearance, our apparel. Because although many have been taught, most people have been taught that if a person's mixed race, then they will look mixed race. But of course, heaven and nature are more varied than that. And some of us do not look mixed. We look like one. We look more like one parent than another parent, for example. Some people with one parent who's black and one parent who's white look as if they've got two black parents, and others with one white parent and one black parent look as if they've got two white parents, or two Chinese parents, or two South Asian parents, or it you see, biology it doesn't stick to the rules that people have been taught in the 20th century. Before the 20th century, most people knew this. It's one of the strange unhelpfuls of the 20th century, that people got so stuck in these narrow confines of if the person looks black, then they must have two black parents. If they look white, they must have two white parents, but not necessarily. Some people, of course, they do look like they've got two parents, two different colors, or two different kinds of hair, or but it's not all of us. So if people could overcome stressing about color and nationality, what you look for, remember, is the national insurance number. Of course, if it's in a social situation, most people will want to know, won't want to say what their national insurance number begins with, but that's, for most of the time, is a pity. In the past, national insurance numbers, known to be proof of one's patria, especially, were what people boasted in. I am a religious person. I hear from the Creator. I hear from the created Heavenles, the heavenly beings, the angels and archangels, the Nefr, the gods of Egypt and of the world. I hear from the saints of all nations in the world. And when they come through to me, when they speak to me, or if I ask them a question, I ask to speak to them, they speak, I may hear back from them. And the way to do that really is to pray, is to ask them. Contacting the ancestors it's solemn. It's a solemn practice, and depending on why you're contacting them as well. They are available to us. Usually, the thing to do is to ask them for help, and to be respectful and polite, and to pray about what they tell you. And remember that if they've passed away, as I said in my several previous videos and posts, that they are, if they've truly passed away, they have left behind, worked through any misconceptions, any mistakes that they made. If you can speak to them, if you can perceive them, then they're not making mistakes anymore. They are made perfect by the Creator, and they are a beautiful resource. One's own family, ancestors, and when you see people making mistakes, or in need of help, or even if they're celebrating, we are free to call our friends ancestors for help. Um, um, there's a lot in this life, in creation, that is frowned upon, really, when it's not outright mocked and ridiculed, uh, especially in the West, and those imitating unhelpful aspects of Europe, which is at least publicly not admitting that they know these things to be true, or that because some people do. There are traditions in England and in Europe that are passed down through the families, or about contacting the families, or our family always does this, our family always calls such and such, or don't do this, or there are traditions here. And there are netta. Some in this world are belaboring under the impression that England, Cialo Borough, that the four countries of England, Scotland, that is Wales, Cymru, Ula, Northern Ireland, Cialo T, known as the Republic of France, that we don't have netta. Of course we do. The Creator didn't miss anybody out. All nations have netta. So if you're coming to not do right, to not do good, don't believe those who've told you that there are no netta to fear here. I'm not talking about people here who may have a bad reaction to anyone who's foreign. I mean, or who looks foreign. I mean, there are netta. There, there are netta here. There are gods here. And there are people who believe in them, even if they wouldn't admit it to someone they don't know, or on television, or some would, but most wouldn't. Yes, color is no determinant of ethnicity. Over the generations of human beings, we are many nations. By the time of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth Tudor, Queen Elizabeth I, that is, they were celebrating the fact that in her generation, she and people close to her certainly were now descended from every royal family of every kingdom, every original kingdom in the world. And Mama, who's good Queen Bess, was born in 1533. So the idea that today we are less mixed than they were then is just not true. And God helps everyone have babies, by the way. You don't have to meet your partner. The Creator can take from you and take from the dad or the mum and make a baby. And that baby, the Creator places in a feminina's womb. Be in your womb for a short time, and then, or for a long time maybe, and then possibly just as the baby is about to be born, the Creator does a swap with another lady and her baby, not to upset anyone. The Creator doesn't do wrong things. It's because the mother and the baby are safer that way, and the other ladies, she is safer, her family, her marriage is safer if her baby goes to yet another lady or another family. And the Creator's done this throughout really throughout the generations of human beings, and therefore you can be descended, as I am, from Queen Elizabeth Tudor, not because she wasn't the Virgin Queen, but she was, but the Creator intervened, took from her, took from um, took from one of her from her square, from her performer husbands, and simply knit together. Yeah, the Creator can do that. And But my real point coming forward to our times is that Europe, Asia, the Americas, um, Egypt, and the other areas of North Africa, the area of North Africa, the Middle East, all used to be black people. And I'm not saying it to have, to be hostile to to Europe or to the Middle East or Asia or North Africa or not quite in performer order, but I'm not being hostile to anyone. But some of um, some of the portraits that I used to see on the internet, even of Queen Marie Antoinette, black, and there's also the factor as as appearance changed quite rapidly in well, a lot of the world, probably most of the world, in the 19th century, it, not everybody changed to look white, but an awful lot of people did, especially in Europe and and even the Middle East. It took long. You could still meet dark black Middle Eastern people in the early 20th century, even amongst the royal family too, royal families too, and so we can get, and there are portraits of them, but they're mostly hidden. Um, Color can throw people when it comes to nationality. Of course, if someone is born and brought up in another country, even if they're your brother or sister, they understandably you're going to have some different outlooks, some different languages and accents and beliefs and cultural understandings, mores, but the person's still your brother or sister, so they're family to you, even if you don't know them. They're still your brother or sister, and that matters to the Creator. It matters to the Heavenles, even if human beings here struggle with that idea. And so into the 20th century, when most of Europe has become white people in 50 years, 70 years earlier, to worry about, to judge a person's ethnicity by their appearance or by their insistence, even if, especially if they don't know, is a mistake. So it is worth bearing in mind that if the person is not looking like their two different color parents, or even the same color parents, and two black parents, and the baby's born white, or the other way around, or two Chinese parents and the baby's born looks South Asian. I mean, it's human beings understanding of what's possible in life, of biology, of nature, of the Creator, is what needs to catch up with the ancestors, because they knew this. And I remember when I was an honors degree student in the 1980s, one of our tutors, or my tutor actually, who took our tutorial group, he said that he reminded me, he was talking to the group, I think he was, not just talking to me, but he said that racism, or that this hostility to foreigners, it's a culted evil seam of thinking that tempts people and has been tempting people for how many thousands of thousands of years, but it's not natural to a human being. So therefore, it's not actually natural to any, or it wasn't natural to any nation. It's a compra, he called it. But it's an evil one. It's a evil. It's a ba, turned. Turn can mean holy turnings, but it can also refer to when someone's turned aside to something ba, something evil. And it was not liking foreigners, discriminating unlawfully against foreigners was something that most English people rejected until more recent times. Um, Germany too. It's not a one thought in Germany that they've always had a problem like they did in the 20s, 30s, 40s. It was an evil turn the nation took, um, and you see what hurt, damage they caused to so many people with a wrong thought. Um, and so it's worth understanding how varied societies, nations, kingdoms have been and are. Europe used to admire Kyalo, Africa's original name. Amongst all the names, Africa's been known by Kyalo as the original name. It's because Kyalo is the original Long, the original kingdom, the original group of kingdoms, of which they used to be, of which originally there were just 18, covering the whole, every area of Kyalo, of Africa. People used to look to them, and not just to the Nile Valley. The Nile Valley taught, of course, because she's Kyalo's crown, she's Kyalo's head. She taught the rest of Kyalo, but it was Egypt is Africa, even though usually they refer to themselves as Kyalo, Kyalo Tutsi, or sometimes Kemet and other names that they call themselves. But this separation between Egypt and North Africa sometimes is from the rest of Kyalo is new. It's recent. Sometimes, of course, there will be dynastic disputes, territorial disputes. Maybe Egypt would be Kyalo Tutsi fighting Kyalo Su, that is the both Sudans. Or Kyalo Su would be fighting Kyalo Wo, that is all of Ethiopia. Yes, there have been disputes and wars and raiding parties, but not all the time. There was certainly and of course, were all Kyalo, even if they were in dispute with each other from time to time. And Kyalo then taught the world. Kyalo's been so downplayed. I'm very fie England. I'm also very fie Kyalo Tutsi and Kyalo Ko, which is South Africa, all of South Africa, settled in the first, completely settled in Royaume, kings and the borough dukedoms of the original capital city, and the dukedoms of the north and the dukedoms of the south. Completely, there's no area of Kyalo Ko that doesn't have a reigning duke under the king, who is now King Misuzulu. So people focus on people's color and assume they have to be foreign. If they sound foreign, if they look foreign to England, I mean, in this case, jumping subjects slightly, but they all come together in. We cannot, if a person can head certain institutions, a certain can be a cabinet minister, I know even if you see this video and understand what I'm saying, it's true. If you look at their national insurance numbers, they're all British ones. In fact, they're all English ones if they're an MP for an English constituency. And the same is true for Skos, for Kimru Wales, for Ula, Northern Ireland. If you can be an MP there, you should double check. If your national insurance number, doesn't it begin with a J or an N? A J for July, an N for November, a W for whiskey. Those, then it's those are not other nations' national insurance numbers out of Kialobara, out of the British Isles. It could be, if you're Scottish and you're a member of the Scottish Parliament, it could begin with an F, an N or a W, and in Wales could begin with an S for Sierra, N, W. In Northern Ireland is the said English royal family are JE, July Echo. The Scos said royal family are Foxtrot Echo, and the Wales said royal family are Sierra Echo, and the Ula Northern Ireland said royal family are July Uniform Echo. And of course, being the royal family, that always their national insurance numbers end with A for Alpha. And that's what you look for when you're trying to understand it, who you are. Or who you've employed, even, or who you're about to marry. It's culturally, emotionally, you may be of the more of where you grew up, but that's culturally and emotionally. Your blood, Patria, and our ethnicity is determined through our fathers, and that cannot change. Um, is who you are. That's who you are. So if yours begins November Echo, like mine does, because I'm Northumberland by blood, then you are too. If your national insurance number begins November Echo, you're English. No matter how you insist, or anyone may insist that you're Indian, Kenyan, South African, you may think you, as far as you feel, you may be Zulu or Xhosa or Sotho or Tswana or Pedi. You may be convinced you're Nigerian because you feel it, because it's who you're used to. It's upbringing matters a lot, but for your initial who you are, your ethnicity, it comes through your real dad. However, you came to be with your family. Heaven gets involved in that too, swapping people. As I said, born according to own is real, and you could have been swapped by the Creator or by an angel, or or by one of the Nefr, but they never act outside of the will of the Creator. A saint could have done it. So don't stress about how come, but just know who you are. And if you have questions about your parents and stuff, then pray. They may be nervous of talking to you about according to own, when the world has decided it's not going to officially acknowledge that such is possible. Governments, government institutions, even charities. I mean, the world's got very strange. National insurance numbers are real, and many people acknowledge it at home, or when they're just with people they feel comfortable talking to about it. It would be more helpful if people would talk all together, because it would settle who in this country is English, who in the British Isles is one of the four kingdoms of the British Isles. They may be Scottish and convinced they're Ghanaian. You may be convinced they're Ghanaian because they say they're Ghanaian. They seem to be. But if the national insurance number begins FE or FA or FG or FZ, then they're Scottish and they belong to your original capital city. If they're NUE E, then they're northeast. If they're NUA, and if it begins with NU and just NUE, NUEA, NUEB, that pattern from Kyalo Tutisi um, follows all the way through Kyalo and all through the Middle East, all through Asia, all through Europe, all through the East, the Americas. So the Sierra Echo is the, if it ends with A for Alpha, is the Welsh royal family. Royal families, it always begins with A for, it always ends, sorry, with A for Alpha. That's good to know too. Before before worrying about any aspect of family life, marriages, and friendships, and what anything, government especially, it, for purposes of who can be an MP in your country. It's none of it, because it's from heaven, none of it is meant to be used for BA for evil. It's not meant for evil, oppression, discrimination. It's not meant for that. It's at all. Humans, even when they don't know this, if a human being wants to be evil, ill to you, then they probably will be. They're not meant to be. They can take any aspect of you, even if you're the same color, from the same background, and if they just decide they're going to oppress you or ruin you or set you up for horrible events abroad, then that's what they're going to do. We pray for heaven to stop them, but holy spanner in the works of BA. It's good to do that. Yes, so I may not look English to many of you, but I am. And as for my interest in England, in the British Isles, in Europe, it's very deep in me. I really am English, November Echo, and A for Alpha at the end. And I was also, from the time I was a baby, I was brought up by a white English couple who, and in the end, there were three of us there, an older brother, a year above me, and a younger sister, 3 years below me. 3 years old I was when she was born. It's so don't assume anything, because I love Kyalo, and I've spent a lot of time over the years trying to show Kyalo's holiness, her greatness, her variety, her original wisdom, knowledge, and just everything good. And the reason I focus on that is because the world's been told only about anybody African who ever did anything bad. You think of Africa and the people's minds go to problems and difficulties and scary stuff, as if human beings only did that in Africa. 20th century says not so. The 19th century had lots of wars in Europe, so it comparatively, they're just human beings, and it's annoys me when people are prejudiced against Kyalo, Black Africa, pre-colonial Black. It's all supposed to be terrible, and it wasn't. There were terrible areas of cities or of countries, of kingdoms, and there were terrible people here and there from time to time, but just as they were in Europe, just as they were in the Middle East or Asia or the Americas, and and all is done. All that evil seam of thinking that most English people used to reject, it led to the Holocaust. It caused 2 world wars. It's not benign. It's not helpful. And also, if you're interested in being like King Arthur, or like Thor, or like a hero of the past, you need to remember that they had no time for injustice. That's what they were fighting. So if you really want, they were upholding, up holding England or France or Denmark. It's not about being BA. It's not about being evil. It's not about being unjust because of someone's appearance. That's what they fought. Um, it's you'll get Thor's hammer in your life instead of who you assume he's going to be fighting. Um, it's it's worth taking this to heart because it's so very true. And even the slave trade, and I'm sure there'll be people saying, but what about, um, they were all the same color. So it's worth bearing in mind that whatever the transatlantic slave trade was, throughout the 18th century, even into the 19th century, the English people who were going there, the description of them as white is mostly about a religious affiliation. There are different color compras in religion that also doesn't get spoken about much these days publicly. Privately, in groups, societies, it does still sometimes get taught well. Um, but it's worth just bearing in mind that for all the portraits of European people as white people, they did know, because they used to believe in God and miracles, remember, and magic in those days, and wisely so. And so they got prophecy that there would come a time in our times, late 19th century, mid 19th century onwards, where most people in Europe would become white, as we're used to seeing people, and they, because of too many would not know Royaume well enough, would not know their histories well enough, which is telling histories faithfully is part of Royaume living, which applies to everyone, even the Philaine, that they made sure they made portraits of themselves as well, which is why, as white people, which is why there are black portraits of Queen Marie Antoinette and there are white portraits of Queen Marie Antoinette. There are black portraits of Queen Charlotte, the wife, consort queen of His Majesty King George III. Some show her as quite dark. Some show her as mixed race, which she is. I believe I, actually, I could be wrong about her mother's personal ethnicity. Don't just follow her color. But she's Kyalo. She's Kyalo, uh, ethnically, and her dad is German and German prince. And so some of the portrait, even the portrait that hangs at Buckingham Palace, it, all these years, mixed race is good Queen Charlotte, as I call her. It's try not to stress and obsess about people's colour. If they're an MP, if they are a bishop in the English church, the national insurance number begins with a J, an N, or a W. Well, certainly there is no native African person whose national insurance number begins with those letters, nor Middle Eastern, nor Asian, nor native to the Americas. And I say this not to cause conflagration of people ostracizing each other, but those evil death cults that I've been talking about all this time, because they've been plotting all this time and hurting people all this time, they are fed and led and pushed by people who do know all this. So head in the sands, it's not an option, because they know what they're doing. You may not think that anyone can know what your national insurance number begins with or what color your parents are, because most people can't see just by looking at you, but some people can, and others, they know your national insurance number, or they know what it means when they see it, which can help you enormously if they're honorable enough to help you out, or at least not be horrible to you, recognizing your kin, or just the same dukedom, even if your national insurance numbers end with different letters. Others, they may attack you, but that's why we need prayer. That's why we call the Heavenles, we call the angels, we call the Nefr, we call the saints, we call our ancestors when they're different to those, being a wonderful, wonderful, powerful, holy, very holy people, very holy people. In their lives, maybe they weren't all. Some had a bit of a deathbed confession of faith, after a life maybe of hurting people in various ways, but they are, if they're saints now, since they became saints. Certainly, they are holy and trustworthy, and the Nefr are holy and trustworthy, and so are the angels and the archangels. And my previous videos on the Nefr, they're on YouTube. That I've put them on Instagram. I've put them on Twitter. It's good to know more about life. Best not to assume, and the same goes the other way around. Just because someone looks white in English, it doesn't mean that they are. There's always a minority, about a quarter, in any country, especially an original kingdom, whether it's called nation or republic or whatever these days, but there's always about a quarter who are not ethnically Patria of that country, even if they seem to be. So not everybody in 1950s England who seemed to be white and English was. Some, just as a black person can be English, a white person can be Indian or Zulu. It goes all nature. The Heavenlies didn't stop. The creator, who obviously created the Heavenlies, they're not following small human understandings, this life understandings. No. So best not to stress and obsess about someone's aparu until you know their national insurance number. The parents may not want to tell you who exactly they are or their children. There's no way you can only keep an open question mark on the subject if you're wondering, especially if they especially if you get on really well. That can happen across countries and colors and ethnicities, obviously, but it's worth bearing the question in mind in a friendly way. And to get to know the national insurance numbers of England, Scots, Wales, Ula, Northern Ireland is a good idea. Especially if you are like me, brown, or you're South Asian, or you're Middle Eastern, or you're native to the Americas. Because how do you know you're foreign? If your national insurance number does begin with J for July, N for November, W for whiskey, or F for foxtrot, or S for Sierra, then you are either of the British Isles, of Kialo Bara, excluding Kialo T, the Republic of Air. You could be native to the Americas, to one of the 5 original kingdoms of the Americas. That is North America, Mexico, Central America, originally an original unitary kingdom, or South America, also an original unitary kingdom, or the Caribbean, also an original unitary kingdom, because their national insurance numbers start JNW2. but they have more varied letters after. So the varied, it has to be exact. If you are JE and your friend is JUE, you are English and Newham's, but she is Northern Irish. She's Ula, or he, depending on the friend. If you are NE, you are English. If it's NE at the beginning, you are English. You're Northumberland. If it's NUE, then you're the first dukedom, first original dukedom north of the north of Scotland. You're Scos. If it's NUUE, you are the first north dukedom of Wales or Wales. If FE is the original capital city, and the original is the said royal family of Scotland, the Stuart family, Stuart. Just that family. Stewart is another family, and a ducal family, another family. And if you are SE, Sierra Echo, especially if it ends with an A, then the question is, who are you to the royal family? You may not be the most senior. You may not be the said king's son or daughter or brother, sister, or uncle, aunt. You may not be, but you are that. Your extended family. If you, JUE, that's the said royal family of Ula, Northern Ireland, and it got no time for religious divisions. It's not going to be all in one community or another. It's family and the creators in charge of family. So don't expect everybody, JUE, to be Protestant or Catholic. But if it ends, especially with the same letter, it ends A for Alpha, then your royal family, and then of Ula, original kingdom. If you're EE, then you are, and it ends with A for Alpha, you're the said royal family of Kialo T, different kingdoms. And that's one proof that they're different kingdoms. You can argue politics all day, but that can't be argued away, not truthfully. So EE, Echo Echo, and ends with A for Alpha, then you're certainly the royal, original royal borough of Kialu T. It has to end with A for Alpha if you're a royal family of that borough. It's a fascinating subject. It's not all about difficulties and problems and people oppressing each other. It's also a reason to nicely say a prayer for someone once you realize they're the same as you, whatever their religion or place of birth or upbringing, whatever their color or hair kind. Yeah. So I just want to help people understand the Creator better, Royom better, which governs the world, the law of the long, its place in the world, and how we cannot fight it. The law of the long gives lots of leeway for varieties of situations in nations and families and personal matters, but if you put it in the law of the long pool and it eats it up, whatever your decision, whatever your law proposal, then forget the law proposal. Before you get seriously ill or something, can't fight the law of the long. One can only pray, ask the Heavenles, including one's ancestors, how to apply it to the best. I want to help people understand the histories and how to read histories, because it's not always straightforward what the original author meant, and what we think they meant. If you think of how words have changed their popular meanings since the 18th century, even this language we're speaking, we don't speak it exactly the same way as they did in 1840. You can see that from the novels, even that we don't speak it exactly the same way. So the meanings can have changed over the generations, and what was originally meant isn't always by the words, isn't always what we think. So that's why we need prayer for everything. It's why we need to ask the Heavenles, the Ennead, uh, other pantheon, Netta, town Netta, personal Netta. Every building has heavenly beings, angels, archangels, a Netta, a saint, patron saints. There are actually patron Netta above them, there are patron angels and archangels above them, patron heavenly beings above them, towns, cities, buildings, vehicles, modes of transport, ourselves, our persons, animals have them. And I just would like to help people make make better sense, bring some comfort as one realizes that one doesn't have to feel foreign, even if people are telling you you're foreign. Once you, to whichever country one's living in, once you know what your national insurance number truly means, then you have that inner confidence wherever you live, wherever you live in the world, wherever you travel. People don't always honor it because it lost connection with the creator on the subject. But it is worth knowing, and as I have been relearning from my spirit helpers since 2006, and in truth all my life, but now there is more since 2006. And over the years there's been more that I have been reminded of, and I'm able to remember. There was a time before, on and off, since I was a baby, I was forgetting, speaking to someone in Vreen, in the Ivri world, and coming back to this life and forgetting. We all do it, but the days when I would consistently not be able by heaven to remember my real parents, various matters, Royom, 2006, I was reminded, so that I could not forget. Or since then, so much I've been reminded, and I want to help people who don't belong to a secret order, a secret society, or even a not particularly secret order or society, and then people around you haven't taught you this, or they've taught you bits for varying reasons. I'm not saying that they withheld truth out of a bad intent, but yeah, but still, the creator and my created Heavenles, my spirit helpers, which might go bail as Morgan Le Fay. And if you remember some of my earlier posts, or you saw one of my earlier videos, or you heard of it accurately, although Mama, who's Morgan Le Fay, spent many years fighting her brother, who's King Arthur, she did come to a realization that it was better to be at peace, and there was genuine reconciliation, and that lasted for something like years, more, maybe 13 years. It was a long time of after Mama changed her mind, changed her heart towards her brother, towards supporting the kingdom of Camelot, and the various tales of their times. They're referring to their daily life here, and also Ivri lives, and prophecy and visions where they were shown what would happen if they made a particular decision. so that's why the television series and the films, they vary so much. It's referring to their uh, um, to their King Arthur's uh, daily life, every selves, because we all have many selves. We're all one soul with many selves, and they, as I said earlier, they live can live quite different lives to our daily selves. They can even look a bit different. Um, the hair can be different. But the one soul, um, we have to be careful with that, because some people have been pretending that they're me or they're other people, and they're not. They've got their own national insurance numbers, and but that is another fascinating subject. There's so much in life that is you're going to find it difficult to understand history well if your mind refuses it, from fear or whatever. But if you're not um, able to perceive how miraculous life is, how magic is real. Sometimes it's real in different lives, sometimes it's real in this life too. Um, there's so much to learn, there's so much to know. And when you know, as I posted on Instagram, more than one, at least one post, certain people can take up, at least of the most recent decades, certain cabinet posts by Patria, the national insurance number, um, unless the king has enough authority to, within the law of the long, to vary things when there's a necessity. But that's a whole subject. It's all meant for our blessing. And at least if you, and also before, best not to assume someone's chaos, someone's rank, um, if you don't know. Forget the idea that if they're Kyalo, if they're African, even if they're from the Americas, if they're African American or Caribbean American, Caribbean, something like that, but Afro Caribbean, don't assume who they are. If you don't, you can only do that a little, and you may get yourself into trouble if they are by Patria, through their real dads, senior to you. So just be polite to everyone, if only to avoid social conflict at the supermarket or the cinema or at school. So tread carefully. Just be a person to everyone, and don't assume that because they look like me that they cannot be English, or that if they look like Theresa May that they must be English. They may be Saudi Arabian. They could be Nigerian. There's a small minority how you don't know. They could be Kikuyu or Luo. It's life as the creator has made us. So my mama is black, by the way, if you're wondering. Her dad though is white. Her mum is black, but grandma's parents are both black, and they're both native to Kyalo. One Kyalo Co and Thyself of Kyalo Co, South Africa, North Dukedom, and her mama is Ade Royom, the king's daughter, Nigerian. But her mama is white and English. And the lady I'm speaking of is Aina Sarah Forbes Bonetta, who is actually Aina Sarah Ade. She's Ade. And Queen Victoria, like myself, like all people, all the Royaume, those of us whose national insurance numbers end A, B, C, D, or E, the more senior we are within our, the more pro forma we have, and the more children we have. And Queen Victoria, she had the occasional prince of other longs, dukes, or this, and had children with them who were, because of who they were, mostly went to live in Ethiopia or Nigeria or South Africa. The Zulu princes who visited, she had at least a mama who was Queen Victoria. She's file number 34 because the Cleopatra, I'm her descendant, and I have 3 files, 39, 40, and 41. My real mama by blood is file number 38 at the General Register Office when those files are ever published. So, world is a fascinating place. Let's just be human to each other and honor long pro forma to avoid being punished for fighting it. The Creator be with you. The Heavenles be with you. The Iliad be with you. And all your ancestors be with you. With me. Blessings for stopping this way. The Creator be blessed. Haze of blessings to the only Creator. Amen. Amen.